Hello, everybody, and welcome back to yet another episode of Microsoft Flight Simulator 2024, where we're going to be talking about why you should reinstall Microsoft Flight Simulator 2024 from scratch and what the benefits are. We're also going to be talking about some of the new features and updates that are planned to be coming in the new updates to come, as well as what actually happened on launch day and a gift that the flight sim operators over at Asobo and Microsoft are giving to all of us to say sorry. Stick around. If you are interested in acquiring any of my Overkill's tutorial guides from Microsoft Flight Simulator, or simply interested in supporting the channel, please consider joining us on Patreon. Patreon subscribers level tier 2 and above have access to all of my guides, as well as any future releases that come down the road. Patreon link can be found in the description below.
Overkill simulations, watch us as we fly.
All right, you guys, so let's talk about first what happened on launch day. They had initially insinuated or hinted to the fact that it was an issue with the database cache and the way the delivery system was being given to us, right? So it wasn't exactly the database. I have some more clarification now after their latest live stream to the public as to what is going on and what went on. So first off, what happened that day? I had initially stated that they had done a test of approximately 200,000 connections over to the server, right? Now, what you actually have is you have the servers that house the simulator itself, then you have a content delivery network, and then you have us. So the CDN, or Content Delivery Network, is the middleman between us and the servers themselves. And that is actually where the problem happened. That is where the 200,000 connections was tested with. And that is the same device that received over 1 billion connections at once. So I do stand by my opinion that I stated in my previous What Happened video, that how do you only test with 200,000 connections, knowing that you already, when they mentioned from Microsoft Flight Simulator 2020, had quote unquote, millions of new subscribers to flight simulation. So you already know that you have millions of users that are going to be excited about this, whether they pre-purchased or not. That should have just been anticipated. And to only test with 200,000 connections, to me, was just, I don't know how else to say it, but a terrible test. Okay, it was a weak test into what they anticipated was going to be coming their way based on what they already knew from Microsoft Flight Simulator 2020. So, getting past pointing the fingers and moving on to what are they doing about that for us. First, I want to talk about the gifts. Let's talk about the gifts that are coming our way. They are giving us the historical flyers. I can't remember the damn name of it now. Legendary flyers, right? I don't know. Legend flyers. The legendary aircraft that we've been seeing in Microsoft Flight Simulator 2020. There are 4 of them that we know are coming to Microsoft Flight Simulator 2024. One of them, for example, being the Cessna 185. They are now giving us all 4 of those aircraft for free. You guys can watch the live stream. I'll put a link to it down in the description below if you guys want to hear what the first 2 aircraft are. The second 2, they are keeping a secret, but they have now stated that they will no longer, what was initially supposed to be payware aircraft, will now be delivered to the community for free as an apology. Now, I believe that they stated that was going to come out in the next update, which will be patch update number 3, actually. And we're going to talk about some of the communication problems with that and what's being done there. But don't quote me on that. 3 is going to bring out the new aircraft. So let's talk about a bit more information of what's to come in the coming week. So now to talk about what is coming in the coming week, approximately estimated, sort of, kind of, hopefully, planned, maybe. You never know with these things, right? Set for October or December the 10th, possibly the 12th is literally what was said, which is why I did that. We will have patch number 3 coming to the server. Here's how patches are going to work, guys. Very seldom will you actually be seeing a patch that is required on your end, being what is called the thin client. We have the cloud servers, and you have the client that connects to the servers, which is what we do when we launch our sim, and that is the thin client. Very seldom will there be significant updates to those. So you're not going to find yourselves like we did in 2020, consistently seeing on patch day, going through the downloads and things like that. Now, part of that is a perk and part of that is a hindrance. And we're also going to be talking about why you cannot download the entire sim locally to your machine. So we're going to come back to that in just a minute here. But so some of the things that are expected to be coming on the 13th, notice I went up a notch. The 10th, 12th, 13th, possibly a couple days later, who knows? Planned for the 10th or the 12th. Some of the things that we're supposed to be seeing fixed are going to be things like airport lighting, glitching that we were seeing in things such as DLSS, as well as, for example, the Cessna 172 analog version, the electrical system being basically inaccessible, as well as for us VR flyers, we're going to see the virtual toolbar as well as the virtual EFB be fixed and functional now. Again, that is as early as next week. Now, the next thing we're going to talk about here is some of the other features that are planned to be coming to the sim. Sim updates, they are hoping the first sim update, the actual, sim updates like they did with 2020, are going to be starting in the first quarter of 2025 as early as January. And then just like what we saw with 2020, you should be seeing them coming approximately every 3 months following, with a world update in between, right behind one or the other, just like we saw with 2020. So the first world update you're going to be looking forward to is going to be, I believe, Brazil. Which will have, again, I believe it is 9 very detailed airports, a bunch of points of interest, and the overall scenery enhanced to better match what you would expect to see in real world. Now, they talked about this in their press release after Sedona, that their goal was to do world updates a bit different, still using the Bing service, but also having those high fidelity, geometrically accurate scenery. Forgive me, guys. It's been a long day. I'm a little tired. So I'm brain sort of turning off. Still excited. But anyway, so this is probably the first installation that we'll see to that is Brazil, which I'm pretty excited for. That's an absolutely beautiful country. So that's going to be a lot of fun. I was actually doing, before 2024 launched, I was doing my career in NeoFly over in Brazil. So that was a lot of fun. And it was an absolutely stunning and gorgeous area. Now, talking about world updates, let's talk about the scenery updates that most of us complain about being very inaccurate. Even when modeled nicely, there are things either in the sim that shouldn't be there any longer, torn down buildings, stadiums, whatever it may be, or there's things that should be there that are not. Okay, so let's shed some more light as to why that happens. The Microsoft Flight Simulator Network uses the Bing maps, as we all have known. Bing satellite imagery is updated on a 3-year cycle. Now, the cool part is that coming into 2025, that cycle is about to be renewed, which means the photogrammetry areas should be updated to the latest as of, I would imagine, 2024. I would be willing to bet that takes a while to compile all that data, so I would doubt that it would be accurate as of 2025. I would guess that those images were probably taken sometime this year. That just seems more of a realistic expectation. But the nice part is that we should see that in the sim, and therefore, whatever you saw in your hometown cities or nearby neighbors within the last year, hopefully you'll be able to see that inside the simulator moving forward. After this, it's updated with the latest cycle. Again, that is set to happen in 2025. So now let's come down to the next question before we get into reinstalling Microsoft Flight Simulator, and that is, why can't I download the entire sim local to my desktop? There's actually a really big reason why. Stick around, we'll talk about it. All right, so one of the next big challenges and the things that we've all wanted to know is, why did we just have to go to cloud in beginning? Why don't we have the option to download the entire simulator local to our drive? Now, they are saying that's pretty much impossible because of the nature of how large this simulator is. And for most people, although I don't know that I agree with this statement, but they say that most people wouldn't really have the capacity to support it. To give you hindsight, the base installation for Microsoft Flight Simulator 2020 is right around 150 gigs, give or take, depending on the day and what actually is happening and what actually makes it down to the system, right? We all know the struggles and the troubles. Let's just call it 150 gigs, nice round solid number. Now, with Microsoft Flight Simulator 2024, that would be 1,500 gigs, so 1.5 terabytes is what it would require for the base installation of Microsoft Flight Simulator 2024. Now, this is really critical to think about. I will give them this aspect. It's not completely out of reach, in my personal opinion, but it would be a stretch. At the base installation being 1.5 terabytes, you start adding in new aircraft, new data, new scenery, new add-ons, new mods. Think about how big your Microsoft Flight Simulator 2020 directory became after 4 years of use. You could only imagine how many terabytes you're probably going to be looking at once it comes down to a year or two from now and you start getting all these third-party add-ons that start updating. I can definitely see where it would cause some problems. I just don't necessarily see why it can't be an option. Okay, it would certainly still be an option if somebody wants to shell out for a 4 terabyte hard drive and have it dedicated directly for Microsoft Flight Simulator. I really don't think that should be an issue, especially with the ability to get expansion PCIe cards with M.2 slots available, or just with motherboards that have 2 and 3 M.2 slots there as well, or just external storage using SATA if you want to go the old SATA route. So yes, I agree it should still be an option. However, I guess I will give them partial credit to why it's not. That is a lot of data. Not to mention the one thing I will give them, the download alone on 1.5 terabytes could be, especially depending on your area, something that could take days. So, and obviously would put a big strain on the system itself. So weights and balances, yes, I think it could still be an option. At the same token, I will give them credit as to why they have chosen not to do that. Now, let's meet in the middle and talk about third-party add-ons for the default aircraft. As many of you may or may not know by now, the default aircraft are encrypted. Let me back that up. Any of the default aircraft that are used in career mode are currently encrypted and cannot be modified. Now, the reason why makes perfect sense. It is to prevent cheating. Okay, prevent you from going in, speeding up aircraft, making aircraft capable of doing more than what they are actually capable of doing, therefore having you maintain to the parameters of the mission, right? So what they are trying to do now is working on that. There's no solid answer as to what the solution is as of yet. But the current pitch is, and what they are currently trying to work on, is a way to just have the sim distinguish between career mode and free flight. If you are in free flight and you wish to modify the aircraft, you can do that and have any add-ons, modifications, whatever you want. So if you want a Cessna 172 with 400 horsepower, you just like we did in Microsoft Flight Simulator 2020, you could do that and go taken through the skies at 400 knots in a 172. I wouldn't do that, but hey, what the hell? And then the idea is that when you are in career mode, it will use a separate set of aircraft that will obviously adhere to the default specifications assigned to that plane for the career mode. So that is what the current pitch is and what the current plan is, to open up those default aircrafts, such as a Cessna 172 for analog, for third-party modders to enhance them, improve them, etc. Now, sticking with aircraft for a second, talk about streamed aircraft. As you all know, we currently do not have the ability to stream down aircraft. That is another option that they are looking into, trying to figure out how to implement. So that way, for example, if you were like me, and let's say I'm stuck to the TBM 850 now, but let's say I used to be, before the 850, the 930 was my baby. So let's say I wanted to fly the TBM 930 on the daily basis. I knew I was going to fly it. I get tired of waiting for the download. Or, I don't want to stream it always, because as you guys know, when they all say streamed, what that means is that exactly what it sounds like. The aircraft does not exist locally on your machine. It, just like the scenery, just like the environment, every time you load into an aircraft, all of the data for that aircraft is streamed down to your computer and used that way. So the idea here is that, again, it sounds like they are going to be putting in an option that will give you the ability to at least download the aircraft so that they were hosted locally on your machine. They were a little vague on that one, and I couldn't decide if that was something they were taking seriously and really going to push or not, in my personal opinion, but it did sound like they were at least hearing us, and that is a request that they are taking into consideration. So that is not to shoot down the Asobo team at all. I just couldn't quite tell by the verbiage that was used if that was solid or not, but it is something that seems to be being used. And then, of course, things like rolling cache, VRAM versus RAM, random access memory. VRAM is for the RAM that is on your video card. RAM is the RAM that is stored inside of your PC. They are also looking at, with this next update, there will be performance and enhancements, which will, at the very least, start alerting you if your VRAM is starting to get capped or if your RAM is starting to get capped. I thought that... Okay, so essentially what will happen is if either one of those peaks, If, for example, if the VRAM on the video card maxes out and stays maxed out, it could potentially cause a driver crash, causing the video card itself to crash and have you dump back down to the desktop, right? And actually could reset everything. Where obviously, as you know, if the RAM crashes, it could either cause a full PC crash or it could just cause the sim to crash the desktop. I'm not quite sure what the alert is going to do. Now, the catch here is that, in theory, things like adjusting LOD, level of detail, things like adjusting overall graphic settings should reduce the VRAM required by your GPU. So I guess in the aspect of adjusting your settings, this alert does help. Although I will also recommend to you guys an application called MSI Afterburner, especially for the users of NVIDIA cards. MSI Afterburner is an incredibly powerful tool. You do not have to have an MSI graphics card to take advantage of MSI Afterburner. It is an incredible tool that tells you both the clock speed, voltage, and then VRAM usage of your GPU. So again, if you start noticing that number rising a bit high, you can go into your settings. For example, if you're running on Ultra and you're seeing your VRAM start to peak, you can come down to, say, a high preset instead, or turn certain things down until you see that VRAM usage come down a bit. That will, I guess I could see the benefit there of using that. The other really cool thing about MSI Afterburner, if you guys have ever seen videos for like myself that I did in my last FPS video, Jay's 2 cents uses it. It has a really awesome customizable overlay that you can leave up in your screen that will give you the option to show things like CPU usage, CPU temperature, GPU usage and temperature, VRAM, etc. And then overall GPU usage percentage. So, for example, an issue that we used to have in 2020 was that your GPU was only being used at like 50 or 60% until the later patches, when all of a sudden you started seeing the 90 and 98% usage, therefore getting the excuse me, full maximum ability and capability of your graphics card. So those are just a few of the things that are coming to the sim again in patch 13 for some performance optimizations. There's another, and those are the reasons why they have not offered a direct download option of Microsoft Flight Simulator 2024, is because of its sheer size, which is, and again, in their defense, surely going to be growing as time moves forward to probably, I would imagine, in excess of 3 terabytes by the end of the next 4-year cycle. So that is a pretty fair statement. So now we're going to get into, you should reinstall Microsoft Flight Simulator 2024. Let's talk about why. Okay, so funny enough, 3 days before they put out their latest video yesterday, I actually just got done reinstalling Microsoft Flight Simulator 2024. Now, I'm going to give you guys a quick tip as you do this. I do recommend deleting everything in relationship to Microsoft Flight Simulator 2024. So, see users, your username, app data, local, packages, Microsoft Limitless, delete that entire folder. Now, if it remains, back up. First thing, apps and features, uninstall Steam, whatever that methodology is. Remember, just right click on it in Steam and hit remove application. For Microsoft Flight Simulator 2024 on store version, make sure that you go into that directory. Again, that is C users, your username, app data, local, packages, Microsoft Limitless, and make sure that Microsoft Limitless folder, if uninstalled correctly, shouldn't be there any longer. Okay, and then if you guys created your own installation directories, again, make sure those are cleaned out. Same with the community folder as well. All right, now, and then I always recommend after any reinstall, and by the way, Steam, it's going to be your Steam directory, wherever Steam is installed, common apps or Steam apps, common apps, and then you should have the Microsoft Flight Simulator folder there. And even if you uninstall it, I believe it does stick, that folder does stick around, so keep an eye for that. Okay, so again, I would remove it. In both cases, restart your computer after the uninstall. Make sure that all the registry keys have been removed as well. No, you don't need to go hunting through the registry. It's just, that's why we're restarting. There's a lot of registry changes that don't actually take effect until after your computer reboots. So after you're doing a major install or uninstall like that, it is a good thing to restart your computer. Even when I install Microsoft Flight Simulator, because of the nature and the way it operates and the issues that we've seen before, after a fresh install, I will usually reboot the machine before I bother launching the sim. Okay, before I bother getting into it, because it launches automatically. So, why? As we talked at the beginning of this video, they had an issue with the content delivery network. That content delivery network, when it crashed, they were using an old system. Now they have migrated to a different system. It sounds like as an interim until they stand up something new and far more robust. In that from that first one, it is the belief that there may have been corrupt or damaged files when the migration to the new one took place. I had mentioned this in a previous video. If there are those of you out there who are still stuck on the 97% issue, do what I said previously. Go and look into your apps and features. Make sure that Microsoft Flight Simulator 2024 doesn't show as installed. If it is, hit the uninstall button. If it doesn't show, again, check that aforementioned directory and look for the Microsoft Limitless folder. If it's there, delete it, reboot, and try again. Okay, but the long and short of it is, because of the change from the content delivery network, because of that change, they are recommending you to uninstall and reinstall the sim to optimize your performance. Even if you don't feel like you're having any issues, basically what they have stated is they can't guarantee that you won't. So again, that sort of goes back to why they also are initiating that apology gift, if you will, of those 4 aircraft, the Legend Flyers, or the hell they're called. I can't remember what the damn name is now. But that's sort of, again, another reason why they did that and took that initiative, which I do applaud them for. At least they gave us something back. It's better than just that wait around, we'll fix it. They did something. I'll give them that. But I think that all sort of falls into the same plays, that they also can't guarantee that some of those old files from the old CDN aren't going to be an issue moving forward. So they are recommending, if you want the best experience or are currently still having issues, to uninstall the simulator completely and reinstall it. So funny enough, I just did the exact same thing. And now we're going to talk about one more thing that you guys are able to do now that creates your own community folder without having to go and change any config files like we did in the initial launch. What I want you guys to do is when you hit your start button, you will now be brought up with your main menu where you have career, flight, or free flight, and marketplace at the bottom. I want you guys to select marketplace. Up at the top left, I want you to select my library. From my library, over at the top right, you should see a settings cog. Okay, not the really top right one, but right underneath it, next to the search window under my library, you should see a small cog. Click that. And there you should see your currently set community directory, which if you have not changed it is likely the default. Again, see users, app data, local packages, blah, 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 blah. What you are now able to do is create a folder, any drive that you want. Simply title it something like My Community Folder or Microsoft Flight Simulator 2024 add-ons, however you want to name it. But you only need one folder. Microsoft Flight Simulator will do the rest when you reboot. So you're going to create a folder inside a File Explorer, open up your yellow folder on your desktop, find where you want your community folder to exist. I do not recommend the desktop. If you want to use the desktop, put it somewhere else and then create a shortcut to it. The desktop is not a good idea. There are lots of reasons why. I'm not going to go into those at this time. I recommend make a shortcut and put it on there. Okay. Also, I recommend putting it on a drive that is fast. If you have an external storage drive that is connected, for example, via USB, even if it's USB 3.0 or 3.1, I would not recommend that. For optimum performance, you're going to want it to be your fastest hard drive that is currently available. So again, moving forward, you are going to create your folder wherever you would like. Now going back to the Microsoft Flight Simulator 2024 window where it shows your current community folder, hit the browse button. Find that newly created folder that you just made and select it. Once you've selected it, down at the bottom of Explorer, you should now be back to Microsoft Flight Simulator's window, and there should be a button that says Confirm. Select Confirm, and now restart the simulator for those changes to take effect. When the simulator restarts, open up that directory, and you should now see Community, Official Store 2020, and Official Store 2024. Obviously, from there on, if you are used to using add-ons linker or just dropping in your add-ons, you simply drop them into that newly created location and set it up. You do not have to delete the original folders if you do not wish to. It would merely clean space, but I don't know that it's enough space to really worry about, where I would worry about the hassle. If you want just that peace of mind where you can easily revert, and this is the cool part that I'm about to get into of them doing this, is that now what it does is it also gives you the option to create a fail-safe directory. Now, what do I mean by that? You can create 2 locations where you have the community folder. One that you use on the daily, every single day, all of your add-ons are in there. And then one that you use in the event that you have a problem. Is it one of my add-ons? Is it an update? Is it something that's broken, right? All those stuff that we do and we use add-ons linker. Well, now you could very easily simply go into, again, that same directory, library, settings, select the other directory, confirm, restart if the sim starts normally, and then you go back to the other one. It is very likely at that point, if the sim crashes again, you have a problem inside of your community folder, right? So it's a great tool for testing as well, because you can have more than one location of that community folder. One is a default, one is an active production, if you will. I'm used to using those terms as production and development. So you could have one that we would call our production folder where we do our day-to-day, and one as a backup that is completely default, left everything vanilla in the event that something goes wrong and you want to see if it's an issue with your directories. That would be a great tool. So I actually applaud them for creating that method, because it actually opens up a lot more options for testing or multiple add-on configurations depending on how you want to do it. Okay, now you could get pretty crazy with it, but again, you're going to wind up taking up a lot of space if you get too wild with it. So anyways, my friends, that is the end of this particular video. I hope you guys found some useful information. I would definitely recommend reinstalling the simulator, as it will benefit you guys. I have noticed a performance increase. Nothing crazy to write home about, but I wasn't really having many issues to begin with. I think I've had one crash the desktop in my entire experience so far with the simulator. So I have been lucky. But obviously, I did notice a slight improvement, and I did time it to make sure that I wasn't full of it, before and after my install. I did notice an improvement in the load time. I would say it was about 20 seconds, nothing crazy when you're talking about 2.5 minutes of what I see currently, and that's on a gigabyte internet speed. But again, things like that are going to vary, so I try not to ride that pony too hard, because there's just too many variables that could be causing that, right? So, as always, guys, let me know what you guys' thoughts are down below. Leave your comments and let me know what happens when you guys reinstall, if you choose to do so. If you guys have any questions, feel free to join me on the Discord. My Discord channel is linked in every single one of my videos, guys. And then, of course, don't forget to check out my second channel, Overkill Entertainment 8, at youtube.com. As always, folks, stay safe and healthy. See you in the next one.